Do you want to start a consulting business that's getting clients in 21 days or less, and a long-lasting consulting business, one that'll stand the test of time? If so, you're in the right place, because in this video, I'm going to walk through 22 different steps that I've personally used now to scale multiple brands past 7 and even 8 figures in the consulting space. We're going to go all the way from just having an idea down to an actual running business that has clients and getting clients consistently. If that sounds good to you, let's go ahead and get this party started with step number 1. Picking your niche. So one of the most important things you can do when you're getting started with building out your consulting business is picking the right niche. Because what most people don't realize is that it's almost always the market that's going to determine if your offer is successful and not your actual product itself. Okay. What I mean by that is that you can have a really, really incredible product, but if it's in the wrong market, it's probably not going to work. Whereas you can also have a pretty mediocre product, but if it's in a really hot market, that still might work. So picking your niche really truly is incredibly important. So I highly recommend that you do some research, look into different marketplaces that are emerging, where you feel like the industry is headed, and choose a consulting niche that is going to be something that lasts long term. The other really important thing to keep in mind when picking your niche is you don't want to go too broad. So for example, if you're, let's say, in the real estate investing world, you don't want to just come at it and say, I'm a real estate investing mentor, or I'm a real estate investing coach. You have to get a little bit more niche down to specific strategies, okay? So a good example might be getting into wholesaling as a real estate strategy that you mentor people on, or creative financing, or fix and flip, right? But getting a little bit niche down to the point where you're not so brought up here that you kind of just are trying to appeal to the masses, but that you've got a strategy that people can pinpoint as your method or your thing. And that brings us to step 2, which is to do your market research. Okay, this is also incredibly important. Not only do you want to make sure that you're doing market research, like we said before, to make sure that you're going to pick up market that's actually going in the right direction and that has a future, but you also want to do market research on your competitors. So once you've picked your niche and you understand kind of the arena that you're going to work in, you should start doing research on your competitors. There's a lot of really, really great ways to do this. We actually have full trainings on how to do that as well. We'll link those in the description down below. One of the quickest ways that you can do it is to, number 1, go ahead and do some Google searches for coaches or consultants that are inside of your niche and see what comes up on Google. The other thing to do is going to be to look at those competitors on Facebook ad library. Okay, so you can Google the Facebook ad library. It's gonna pull up a whole database where you can actually look at people's advertisements live, and you can actually click those, check out their funnels, and see exactly what they're doing. What you wanna make sure that you do is before you just jump into your own consulting business, you've actually done market research, you understand the landscape, and you know what your competitors are doing. That takes us to step number 3. And step number 3 is to find your USP, or your unique selling proposition. This is insanely important, guys, okay? I cannot tell you how many brands we have seen basically sink and not swim because they didn't have a proper USP. Take your time and actually do this right. I'm gonna go ahead and post up on the screen right now the typical framework that we use whenever we're writing out what our USP is. You should make sure that you take that and actually spend time plugging in your own answers to that USP, because what you need to make sure that you can do is stand out in the marketplace, and when someone is shopping around for their coach or their consultant, that they know what it is that you bring to the table that's different and unique. It's absolutely vital to have a USP, because everything that you do after you have your USP should be based on your USP. So your marketing, your sales, your fulfillment, all of it's going to be based around your USP. So that takes us to step number 4. Let's go ahead and make this thing legit. Let's get an LLC set up. So this is really easy to do. You can literally Google set up an LLC in my state. It's usually costs, I don't know, 50, 100 bucks, 150 bucks, depending on where you live, and you can get an LLC set up, okay? You wanna make sure that you have this because later down the road, it's gonna become extremely necessary. So you wanna make sure that you just have it from the beginning. It's really easy to do and just something that you should knock out right from the get-go. The next step is step number 5. Step number 5 is to understand your 4 business departments, okay? So in a good, really well thought out coaching and consulting business, you're gonna have 4 main departments, okay? So let's list those out. The first department is gonna be your fulfillment department. The fulfillment department is going to be the department that actually fulfills on your product and your service. So you can think of this as like a customer comes into your consulting business. Fulfillment is who is taking care of them, how they experience your consulting. The next department that we're going to talk about is going to be marketing. Okay, so marketing is going to be your department that's responsible for generating leads and new customers that come into your business. Okay, so they're going to do things like make your funnel, they're going to run your advertising. This is going to be where all of that stuff is housed. Okay, department number 3 is actually going to be sales. Your sales department is going to be the department that goes through and sells stuff. So pretty self-explanatory there, but this is going to be the arm of your business that's actually responsible for like bringing the revenue in. So while marketing brings the leads in, sales is responsible for actually closing and making sure that those dollars come into the door. And then your fourth and final department is going to be operations. This is the department that basically keeps the company running, right? So these are the people who are doing accounting. These are the people who are tracking KPIs, making sure that meetings are happening, and so on and so forth. Okay, so make sure that you understand what those 4 departments are, because even if you don't have a team now and you don't have a team that's like, in the near future for yourself, you still want to be structuring your business from the get-go with those 4 departments in mind, because it helps you kind of silo in your mind what are the things that you should be taking care of. So now that you understand the 4 business departments, let's go ahead and dive into building out our consulting business is by building out those departments, even if it's you by yourself. So fulfillment department build out. Let's talk about that. Step number 6, you're going to decide what you are offering. Okay, so this is really, really crucial. And there are the 3 C's that we talk about when you're deciding on what you're actually going to offer to your consulting clients. Okay, the 3 C's are course, coaching, and community. This is typically the 3 pillars of what every consultant typically offers nowadays that's doing really, really well. So let's talk about course. So you're going to have an actual course for your clients to go through. This means that there will be some sort of online portal and a way for them to actually digest what you're teaching them, and a place for them to go back and look at resources and assets if you're not available. The second thing is going to be the actual coaching. If you're a consultant, you've got to actually do some consulting or some coaching. You need to make sure that you have some Zoom calls in place to make sure that you're taking care of your clients and that you can answer the questions for them in real time and they have that FaceTime with you. The third thing is going to be community. This is vital. Honestly, the best consultants that we know of in the space, one of the biggest reasons why they're so successful is because they've mastered the art of creating a community. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about how you're going to sculpt that, where your community is going to hang out. It could be Facebook groups, it could be Slack, and think about where you're going to build up that culture and get people to start basically just hanging out with each other. Now we're on to step number 7. This is going to be where you actually film and edit the content for your course that we just talked about. All of your expertise, all of your knowledge is kind of outlined. What we commonly see people do is a course that's around 6 to 8 modules, and then each module should have 5-10 videos about in there. I would say definitely don't do less than 5. If you can get 10 videos in each module, that'd be great. That just basically puts a really good foot forward with your clients, because it showcases that you have all of this expertise, all of this knowledge that you can just dump right here online and that they can access it anytime. Okay, so you want to make sure that you film it and that you edit it. Don't overthink this part. A lot of people go like so crazy because they're thinking my course has to be like, it needs to look like it's on HGTV or whatever, right? And sure, maybe down the road you can hire more professional editors and you can make it super fancy, but when you're getting started, don't overthink the production quality on some of this stuff. The most important thing that your clients are really going to care about is if the stuff that you're talking about actually helps them and if it's actually valuable. So put your time and effort into that, and then make sure that you just get the content done. Okay, it's more important to have it finished and have it help people than for it to never get done because you were stressing about how you wanted it to look. And that takes us to step number 8, which is the LMS, or the Learning Management System. Okay, so when you have all of your course video content filmed, the next thing you need to do is you need to put it somewhere where people can actually watch it. So you want to go ahead and set up an LMS, which is, like I said, a learning management system, and this is going to be where people can go ahead and access that content. Some of the ones that we recommend are Kajabi, Thinkific, and School, SKOOL. Those are the 3 probably most popular ones that we see people use and work really, really well. Step number 9 is going to be thinking about your coaching calls that we talked about. You want to actually create a schedule so that you know that, or not just but that your clients also know when it is that they can hop on and attend those coaching calls. We typically see people start with about 2 coaching calls per week that they offer for their clients. And this is group coaching, okay? This isn't necessarily just one-on-one coaching. This is you opening up a Zoom room and answering questions and going through training content twice per week, and you want to make sure that you actually schedule that out. It's a really good idea too, if you already have a couple of clients in your circle, to ask what times work best for them, because sometimes you try doing your coaching calls in the middle of the day, it doesn't really work great for some of the people, so you might end up having to do one coaching session more in the evening, or you might just have to play with it. But the most important thing is that you have a schedule and people know when they can go ahead and show up to attend your coaching calls. And number 10, we are on step number 10. Step number 10 is, how do you actually support your clients once they've purchased your consulting? Okay, so we've talked about how they have the course, we've talked about how you're going to be on the coaching calls with them, but if they have questions and things, how do they actually get support? So one of the best ways that you can provide support is by having that community element, okay? So having a Facebook group, or having a Slack group, or a place where people can come in and post their questions up and get answers publicly. This is really important, because if you can get that to work correctly, someone's question might actually end up helping a different person, right? Because typically inside of these communities, people are all wondering and asking the same thing. So if you can have someone ask a question publicly and then you answer it with a really wise and amazing answer, and that's seen publicly, one, you just helped out a bunch of people because everyone got the answer, but two, it also makes you more of the authority figure and showcases the reason why people are paying for your expertise in the first place, right? So make sure that you have that. Now, with that said, we also highly recommend that you create some sort of email address with your consulting domain or whatever your company name is there, for people to go ahead and email support questions in. Sometimes people want to ask questions, but they don't necessarily want it to be in a public setting. So you should have a way for people to ask more direct, personal questions if they would like to. And that is going to round out the fulfillment department. So now we are going to move into the marketing department for step 11. So step 11 is to go over the actual acquisition strategy. So this is one of my favorite topics and one of the things that I could talk about a lot. We can honestly do a whole separate YouTube video literally just on acquisition strategy for consulting businesses. But I'm going to talk about a couple of the main ones that you will see along the way and which one we personally believe is the most successful. Okay, so there's two main schools of thought here. School number one is basically you have a low ticket product, let's say like a $10 book that you're selling. Throw up some ads to sell your $10 book, and then that $10 book generates a list of customers or buyers, and then those buyers end up getting upsold later down the funnel or down the process into higher priced items. So that's typically known as the ascension model, which basically just means you're trying to get a bunch of people on the front end to buy lower priced items, and then you're going to take all those people who bought that and try to sell them higher priced stuff on the back end. That's one school of thought. The second school of thought is going direct to the higher ticket items, right? So absolutely totally skipping the low ticket stuff and going direct to the first time someone's paying you, they're paying you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Those are the two different schools of thought. We typically are much bigger fans of going the direct route and going to that school of thought. The reason why is because getting a low ticket funnel to work really, really well takes a lot of focus, takes a lot of optimization, takes a lot of funnel tweaking, takes a lot of copywriting. The list kind of goes on and on and on and on. And it really just boils down to if that funnel is going to convert. You've got to run ads and just kind of have that ad spend going. And if that funnel isn't working right away, you could be burning a lot of that ad spend. Whereas on the other school of thought, when you're going direct to the higher priced items, you know right away if it's working or not because you're trying to sell that high ticket item. And when you sell that high ticket item, you get the high ticket income to fund things like the ad spend, right? Whereas if you're selling $10 books, it's a lot harder to kind of make up that income right away. And so that's kind of just really, really quick high level view of the two different main schools of thought. So I'm going to focus here on the rest of this marketing setup here. I'm going to focus on that school of thought. And then typically after we get that working, what we'll do is then we'll introduce lower priced items to kind of put some more gas on the fire. But we really love to start with going direct to those higher priced offers just because it helps generate revenue for the business faster, and it's just going to be a much smoother direct route. So now that we've talked about the acquisition strategy that we want to run with, we are going to move on to step 12. So step 12 is going to be to film your VSL and your ads. If you do not know what a VSL is, it is a video sales letter. And you're going to need that video sales letter for that direct strategy that we just talked about, okay? The reason that you're going to need a VSL is because you need a way for your potential prospects to get warmed up and nurtured to who you are and what your process is. Okay, when someone's considering buying something that's going to be, let's just say $10,000, they really want to understand what they're getting. They want to understand who you are. They want to build up that trust and make sure that if they're going to invest, it's going to be worth their time, money, and energy. So you want to make sure that you actually film your VSL and you put a lot of time and effort into it. Okay. In the marketing phase, when I'm in the marketing build out here, the thing I probably spend the most time on the marketing side is building out a really good VSL. Okay, because at the end of the day, the VSL is kind of the heart of your marketing strategy. If it's not good, if it's rushed, then basically the whole rest of the marketing strategy doesn't work. On this acquisition strategy, we're running all of our paid traffic to watch this video sales letter. Okay, so it has to be good. So spend your time here, make this actually work really well. We have other videos to help you on this too. So I know that, again, this could be a totally separate video because like writing a VSL is a bit of a beast, but you want to make sure that you get that done and you do it right. When you're in this same phase of like writing the VSL and filming it, this is also a really great time to write and film some ads. You're already in the headspace of writing marketing material. You're already in the headspace of you're about to film. So go ahead and knock out your VSL and your ads at the same time. Now your ads, let's talk about those just for a really quick second. Your ads are going to be ads that send traffic to your VSL. Right? So your ads are going to be things that have a hook. They maybe address a pain point with your target market, and then you're going to let them know that you have a free training or a free case study for them to watch. So click the link below to go ahead and watch that training. They're going to click that and they're going to get to your funnel where they get to watch your VSL. Okay. So just so you kind of understand how those two things are connected. And that moves us to step number 13, which is to actually build your funnel. So the VSL funnel that we build is pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk through each of the steps with you right now, and I'll even put a diagram on the screen so that you can kind of see how it flows. So you're going to have someone who clicks your ads. After they click your ad, they're going to land on your landing page. Your landing page is a really quick and simple squeeze page that's basically designed to get somebody's interest and then have them opt into a form to get whatever it is that you're offering. So for example, we talked about that free training, right, to see the VSL. So on that homepage, you might say something like, hey, I want to show you how we're wholesaling houses right now. Go ahead and enter your information below to watch my free training on how to wholesale step by step. Someone will go ahead and they will put their name, email, and phone. Those are the common opt-ins. And they're going to move to page 2 of your funnel. Page 2 of your funnel is going to be your video sales letter page. This is going to be where you actually host the video sales letter that you went ahead and filmed in the prior step. They're going to watch that video. Once they've watched it, we typically do a button pop below the video. A button pop is basically just a delayed button that appears after they've watched a certain amount of the video, so that the way you know the people who are moving through your funnel have actually watched a certain amount, because you don't want people to just fly through. It makes them unqualified leads. So if you know someone's been on that page for a bit, you have the button pop up. When they click that button, they move to step 3 of your funnel. Step 3 of your funnel is going to be the calendar/application. We usually do a combined step of those two things. And it's really just a simple page that has a calendar on it. And when they choose a time to book with your team, they have to answer a few questions. That's the application part in order to complete the booking. Once they've completed that booking, they now move to the final step of your funnel, which is the success or the pre-call page. And this page is basically just designed to be a thank you, a confirmation for booking with your team. And then you want to make sure that they actually show up to the call. So you want to make sure that you have copy and resources and value on that page that encourage them to make sure that they actually want to show up to the session that they booked with you or your team, okay? And that's the funnel. Now, that funnel typically gets built on one of two platforms. You have ClickFunnels and you have Go High Level. Those are the two most popular ones that we see people using right now. You absolutely can build the funnel elsewhere. We see people build it on WordPress, Lead Pages. There's a bunch of different sites, but I would say that like if you're getting started and you're just trying to pick one, I would go with either ClickFunnels or Go High Level, okay? So that is the funnel build. Now we move to step 14. Step 14 is the email drip, okay? So you wanna make sure that when someone's opting in for that VSL training, that you actually have follow-up communication with them. The main reason for this is because when someone is going through your funnel, they might drop off, meaning they might get to the VSL page and then they drop off, like they didn't end up getting to the calendar booking page. Or maybe they made it all the way to the calendar, but they didn't see a time that worked, so then they left, right? Those things happen all the time. And so you wanna make sure that you have follow-up communication so that it's almost kind of like a net that's sitting below your funnel. And when people fall out, the email drip kind of grabs them and throws them right back up into the funnel. Okay, so hopefully that was a good visual, but you want to make sure that you have this email drip. So many people overlook this, and email is an incredibly powerful tool. There are millions of dollars that are made on email, so do not sleep on it. Make sure that you use it and make sure that you build a legitimate email drip sequence that's going to encourage people to move back up into the funnel. Pretty much the way it's going to flow is you're going to have your welcome email, right? That basically delivers the asset that you said. So it's going to be like, hey, you opted in for this training. Here's the training, right? And then you're going to build authority and credibility. You're going to drop some testimonials. You're going to encourage them to book if they haven't booked. And then you're going to move into like a last chance. Like, hey, you've been on the email list for a little bit. You haven't booked with us. This is your last chance. We're going to remove you from the list, sort of a deal, right? That type of sequence works really great for this. And then the last note here on email drips is that we prefer to use ActiveCampaign. We've seen really great results with them, and they have a really great automation and workflow and tagging process that we've seen just work really well. That moves us now to step number 15, which is launch your advertising. So as you know, you're currently here watching this video on the AdClass channel. This is kind of our bread and butter. This is what we like to talk about the most. So there's tons of different videos on this channel to talk through the actual advertising strategy. But what I'll walk through here is that you want to make sure that when you're getting started, you want to pick the right platform. Okay, we almost always tell people to start with Facebook and Instagram simply because it's a lower barrier to entry, because you can start with images and graphics. Whereas on YouTube, you kind of have to go straight in with video. We primarily recommend people to do Facebook and Instagram ads. We also highly recommend Google search ads, especially if you're already a well-known influencer. Google search is insanely powerful, okay? Because basically if you're not already bidding on your own name, it's just like the lowest hanging fruit, insanely high return on ad spend for those. So you also want to make sure that you're able to run on YouTube. And then if you're going to do another platform, we've seen really great success lately on TikTok as well. So those are kind of the main platforms. And again, the whole point is getting your ads launched in order to send traffic to this VSL funnel, right? Now I'll run through some really quick costs on the advertising side before we move into the sales build out. Typically what you're gonna see for a VSL type funnel is you're gonna see people opting in for around $5 to $10 to opt in for your training. And then typically what you're gonna see for getting a booked call after someone has watched your VSL and they've booked a call on your calendar usually sits around $150. It can range though, depending on how much friction or how difficult you make it for someone to move through your funnel. That's a little quick pro tip, but the more friction that you add, you're gonna have higher lead costs, which means you're gonna pay more for those leads. But in theory, because there's more friction, the people who make it through that are gonna be higher quality leads. So those are just some quick cost estimates. And then roundabout, typically we see about 1,000 to 1,500, somewhere in that range, for cost to acquire a new customer, which means that on average with this model, you're typically spending about $1,000 to $1,500 to get a customer. But again, remember, we're talking about selling $7,500, $10,000 consulting packages. That's it on the marketing end. Let's move to the sales build out. So step number 16 is going to be your sales CRM. So a lot of people, when they're getting started, they just go with Google Sheets, right? I'm sure maybe you've even been there before, but you got some leads coming in, you need to talk to them. You're just putting their name, their email, their phone, and some notes inside of Google Sheets. And that can be a good way to get started whenever you just have kind of inconsistent lead flow, or you're just kind of just trying to figure it out. But ideally, once you have consistent lead flow, right, and your marketing is built out and you're doing a good job, you want to have an actual CRM. So we talked a little bit about Go High Level before. That's also a really great tool if you're getting started to have as a sales CRM. And then the other one that we highly recommend, and this is for like, I would say larger or more enterprise, once you start, building up your consulting business, is to move to something like close.com. So Close is a really great tool for some of the biggest coaches and consultants that we work with. That's the main sales CRM that they use, but definitely make sure that you get one set up, because you'll realize once you actually have a CRM, how massive of an impact it can make us from moving away from something like Google Sheets, because you can have just so much more data at your fingertips, the ability to filter people, call people, text people, all from one platform, the ability to just understand how things are moving through the pipeline, different statuses. I mean, you name it, having a CRM is actually really important. So, and CRM just stands for customer relationship management, if you did not know that. Okay, so you want to make sure that you get that set up. Then you are going to move to step 17, which is actually having sales reps and an actual sales team. Now, most coaches and consultants, when they're getting started, obviously you are the salesperson, right? You have to take your first few calls. So if that's you right now, then you don't have to worry about hiring another person. You just want to make sure that you're able to actually take calls. Okay, so that's kind of the main thing here. This will kind of transition into step 18, which is actually having a sales script. Okay, so the script is going to be useful whether it's you or whether you actually have sales reps, but you want to make sure that you have a script that you use. Okay, you don't have to read it word for word for word. A lot of people will tell you, oh, just read the script, right? And it works. The best salespeople that I know, their script is more of kind of like a guideline. It's like a way to kind of move through the conversation and make sure that you hit key points. But if you read through a script, literally word for word, you're probably going to sound like a robot and you're probably not going to sell anything. Make sure that you have a solid sales script that you can run through. When someone gets on the phone with you, you make sure that you're hitting some key points. One of the best ways to do it, I would say I'll run through a really quick, like high level sales script for you, is number one, you want to greet the person, obviously, have a really nice, warm, welcoming intro, smile on your face, and just make sure that you can introduce yourself solid. Okay, after you introduce yourself, you're going to basically immediately dive into what it is that they're calling for, right? They're going to start telling you stories about why they called, what they're looking for, what their pain points are, and what your job is to do as a salesperson is to really dig into the problems that they've been having, because those problems are really the reason that they're looking for your help, right? And if you can dig into those problems and truly understand them, that's going to be where your solution can speak to those problems. So dig deep, figure out where their pain points are, figure out where their problems are, and then move into your solution and how it works. When you explain your solution, you can typically walk through 3 or 4 different pillars of how your process works. It's good to break up your process into 3 or 4 pillars because you don't want it to sound insanely complicated. When you're basically saying how does your consulting process work, try to see if you can simplify it down into 3 or 4 different steps and then walk them through each of those and how they work, and make sure that when you're doing that, you're speaking to the pain points that they mentioned earlier in the call. And then once you've basically done that and explained your offer, then you're going to move into the price, right? You're going to drop the price and then you're going to stop talking. That's probably one of the biggest sales lessons that I've seen kind of communicated across multiple teams, is just drop your price and then stop talking. Because if you drop your price and then you keep fumbling and talking, it's a psychological signal to the person you're on the phone with that you have to like explain or justify your price, right? But if you just say your price and you stop talking, it puts the ball back in the other person's court. And it's also just like shows that you're confident with what it is that you charge. And then you basically deal with any objections and then you basically move into the close and swipe the card, right? That's kind of the typical flow of a sales pitch. Just wanted to make sure I ran through that if it was helpful for you. So now that we've talked about the sales CRM, about if you're going to have reps or not, and if you have a good pitch, let's move now finally into the operations build out. Okay, so now let's jump into the operations build out. Okay, so step number 19 is going to be KPI tracking. All right, so remember at the beginning of this video, we talked about the 4 different business departments, right? We talked about fulfillment, we talked about marketing, we talked about sales, and we talked about operations. Each of these departments need to have KPIs that you can track so you can make sure that people are actually doing their work, or if you're a solopreneur, right, that you're actually doing your job and you can see where you're basically hitting goals or not hitting goals. Here are some of the common KPIs that you can track for marketing. So on marketing, probably the North Star, the one that people care about the most, is going to be your return on ad spend. So for every dollar that you spend, what's actually the money that's coming back into the business? Some of the other KPIs that you're probably going to want to track there are things like cost per lead. You're going to want to track cost per call. You're going to want to track conversion rates on your landing pages. For every 100 people that visit your landing page, how many of them move to the next one, right? Those are all little KPIs that you're going to want to keep along the way. Those are some of the ones for marketing. Now for fulfillment, some of the things that you're going to want to really look at there are going to be things like retention, things like client success. Maybe you're collecting testimonials, you want to track that. But I would say probably the biggest one really is going to be that retention. On the sales side, obviously, it's going to be money that comes in the door, right? But one of the best KPIs that we use to track that is going to be dollars per lead. For every lead that gets passed to the sales team, how many dollars are being generated back for that, right? So that's a really great KPI and a good one to look at for sales. There's a bunch of others as well. It's going to be things like close rate, show rate, all of that fun stuff. And then moving into operations, the big thing that you want to track there is obviously profitability. So you want to make sure that overall company expenses are looking good compared to the amount of revenue that you are bringing in, right? So you want to make sure that typically what we see as really good profit margins in the consulting space are anywhere from like 40 to 50% is like a really solid profit margin for the coaching and consulting space. So Okay, cool. So those are KPIs and what to track. Also, side little like pro tip here as well for KPI tracking on the marketing side, since that's kind of the area I live in the most, is use something like Hyros or an attribution-based platform to track back that ROAS and that profitability, because tracking return on ad spend simply from Facebook or Google or on platform is not as accurate. Okay, so you want to make sure that you have something else like Hyros. Step 20 is your payment processor. So you want to make sure that you can actually collect payments, right? Because if your sales rep is on the phone and they make a sale, you want to actually make sure that they can swipe a card. But where does that card get swiped, right? You have to have a payment processor. One of the most common ones that everybody uses is Stripe. It's a great place to start if you're looking for one. We've also had a lot of really great success with a company called Easy Pay Direct. They're a really great payment processor and I highly recommend them as well. But either way, you're going to have to make sure that you get a payment processor if you want to actually collect money from your clients. So make sure that you get one of those set up. Next is going to be step 21, which is your contracts. Okay, so whenever someone buys your services, you want to make sure that you have a user agreement in place. Okay, this is really important because it protects you and it protects them. And you want to make sure that you have that sort of agreement, so that way if anything happens later down the road, if there are certain questions or if there's a disgruntled person or someone's unhappy, you both can come back to the user agreement and be like, hey, this is what we signed on, right? This is what we agreed on together. And you can kind of point some of those things out. It's going to do things like say the price that they paid, what your personal policies are, what is it that you're actually going to deliver, how can they utilize the things that once they get access to it. So for example, like can someone come into your program and then take your videos that you use in your course and try to like go sell it themselves, right? Little things like that. You want to make sure that your UA protects you and it protects them. So just make sure that you have it. It also makes you more professional. Once someone buys and you can send them out a contract like that, it's a good professional look. And honestly, it's really smart. So do it. And then I highly also recommend that for you to use legal counsel to make sure that it's done right. And then step number 22, and this will wrap it up and complete the consulting blueprint, is basically having a regular cadence for your leadership. Okay, so again, if you're a solopreneur, you still want to take some time to look at those KPIs. I would say if you're a solopreneur, just take time once a week to sit down and look at the KPIs that you've set for each of these different departments to see how you're stacking up. Once you have a team, you should absolutely make sure that you set a meeting schedule where you guys all look at department KPIs together. This is such an incredibly important meeting. It allows everyone to come to the table, basically speak to the KPIs that they are responsible for. And if they're hitting goals, awesome, let's talk about why that's happening. And if they're not hitting goals, it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of work together and figure out, okay, why are we not hitting that goal? What can we do? And you have kind of the brains of the leadership team there to kind of troubleshoot and brainstorm together. So that's it, guys. Those are the 22 steps to take if you want to go ahead and create your own consulting business. I hope that this was helpful. If you'd like, go ahead and make sure that you check out the description below. There's some free goodies there. Throughout the video, I talked about a couple of different things. We're going to link some of those things down below for you to go ahead and access. And if you haven't, go ahead and join our free Facebook group. We have a group of a ton of people that are inside there that are just working on coaching and consulting offers. So if you want to get like inside of a community for free, get some questions answered, we're in there. I'm in there. My business partner Dakota is in there. We're there to help and answer any questions that you might have with anything that we just talked about here. So I really hope that this video was helpful. If you have any questions, also leave them in the comments below so that way I can answer here on YouTube as well. All right, guys, catch you in the next one.